For us over the past few parshas. We have this week the serious rebellion of Korach against Moshe and against Aaron. Again, these are all very perplexing issues because it's not clear to us what are the motives that drove them to such behavior. After all, it was obvious that Moshe was blessed with the Spirit of God. He had to wear a mask on his face. I mean, Moshe was untouchable, so to speak. And Aaron brought the Torah on a regular basis. So what was it that drove them? So there are different streams of thought regarding the motives of Korach. Rashi teaches us that Einov Hita, so he made an error because he realized that he was going to have a descendant, Shmuel Hanovi. And the great prophet Shmuel, it says, Moshe v'Aaron b'choanov, u'Shmuel b'korei Shmo, that Shmuel is the equal of Moshe and Aaron. So he said, well, if that's what the grandchildren look like, you can imagine what the Zaydim must be. And therefore, he thought that he had the right to challenge Moshe. Part of the reason is that after, and we're going to have it in next week's parsha, that there was a sense that they were not going to go into Eretz Yisrael anymore because of what happened at Parsha Shlach with the Meraglim. And there was a sense even before Moshe's sin, which is recorded in Parshas Chukas, but there was a sense that Moshe wasn't going to go either. And therefore, he thought that instead of Yoshua ben Nun being the successor, that he would be the successor. He was entitled because of his pedigree to the house of Levi, and because he saw greatness in his family, and therefore he thought that somehow he's entitled because of the later greatness that would come with Shmuel Hanavi. Rashi says, Vayikach Korach Lokach es atzmo. He took himself, because the word Vayikach here really doesn't belong. It doesn't say in the Torah what he took. It should say Vayovo Korach. He came and he mobilized all the people. What was the Vayikach? What did he take? So Rashi says that Lokach atzmo, he took himself. Meaning, we have the same phrase in English, to take yourself seriously. He took himself and he split him off from the rest of the Jewish people. He thought he was entitled, very strongly entitled. So there are many times when people have a feeling of entitlement, and they have a feeling that somehow they are not being treated fairly, that they deserve more than what they have. So that drives people many times to do things that are really against their interest. But because their feeling of frustration is so great that it clouds their vision, and it makes them behave in an irrational fashion. And one of the great tests in life, psychological tests that a person has to face, is how to deal with one's frustrations. So there are many that deal with it in anger, which is not the way to deal with it. That's the story of Hillel HaZaken, who fought all the frustrations of life by not becoming angry, by being able to control his anger. But part of the response of frustrations is that a person loses the sense of balance and he lashes out. And he lashes out at whatever is handy. And Korach is absolutely frustrated by the fact that he does not feel that he has the recognition that he's entitled to. And because of that, therefore, he lashes out at Moshe, who is his relative, and he engages in a machlokas that will kill many, many Jews, and he goes on a self-destructive path. Now we will have later in the Torah that the Torah will say, when it counts the Jewish people, the Torah will say, B'nei korach lo mesu. The sons of Korach did not die. They stayed away from their father's folly. There's a medrash that they were half swallowed up, not completely swallowed up, and they were able to save themselves. But we find that the Bnei Korach are one of the authors, one of the 10 authors of Sefer Tehillim. We recite every week Livnei Korach Mizmor, and we recite Lam Natseach Livnei Korach before Tkiyah Shofar. Now the Bnei Korach turned like Shmuel. So it's a very strange situation that Korach himself is, so to speak, held in very negative light because of his behavior, but his descendants, his children, who go by the same name, they ascribe themselves to the house of Korach. They are remembered positively and for good things, and throughout all the generations of the Jewish people. So that's one of the things that Rashi means, Vayikach Korach lokach atzmo. He took himself, not his children, not the descendants, not others. Because of his own personal frustration, his own personal desire for honor and for power. So he took himself, and those that went with him will also be destroyed. And what he did is, what usually happens is that if one mounts a rebellion, so then all the malcontents, for various reasons, even though they have nothing in common, combine together. So Dosam Vaviram are malcontents from Mitzrayim till now, who never are satisfied with Moshe, and who always are the ones that say that we should go back to Mitzrayim. So they join the rebellion. Not only join the rebellion, they are one of the main leaders they become the main leaders of the rebellion with Korach. So it says in the Torah that Moshe tried to pacify them. Moshe said, he invited them to a summit. They should come together, he wants to talk to them. And they said with tremendous cynicism, the cynical answer is what is their undoing. Lo nale, we're not going to, so lo nale really means we're not going to rise from this, we're going to get sink in the earth, but they didn't mean that. They meant they're not going to Eretz Yisrael. They're not doing anything for Moshe. And then they say, Ha'at ki alisonu me'eretz zovas cholav v'dvash. Is it not enough for you that you took us? So they take the phrase that the Torah used to describe Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Zovas Cholav V'Dvash, and they ascribe it to the land of Egypt. to the land of their slavery. So you took us out of a land that's Eretz Zovetz Cholov V'Dvosh, L'Hamiseinu B'Midbar, and you only want that we should all die in the desert. Because we're not going to Eretz Yisrael. So you expect that we should listen to you? That somehow you should have an influence
8 in the evening.
us. So that becomes a very, very negative thing here. And the Gemara says, Oy lo Rosh, Oy lo Shcheina. Ruvain was next to the area of Kohos. They had a negative influence upon each other. They negated each other. And because of that, therefore, they also go down. Now, there was one other person from Shevet Ruvain that's mentioned, On ben Peles. So what happened to him? So the Gemara says an interesting thing. The Gemara says, Chochmas noshim bonsa beisa, the wisdom of women built her house. Who was the wisdom of women? That's the wife of On ben Peles. Well, how did she save her husband that he didn't go that day with Korach and with Dasan and Aviram? So the Gemara says an interesting thing. The Gemara says that she took off her sheitel. She took off her head covering. So when the men came to pick up On ben Peles to have a machlekes HaMoshe Rabbeinu, they didn't enter the house because they were frum. They weren't going to go to a house where a woman had her head uncovered. And therefore they let him alone. And he survived. So that's the irony of looking at Torah the wrong way. That to go to the machlekes with Moshe, that didn't bother them at all. That was it's a mitzvah. But that the woman should somehow, in their eyes, be not properly covered. How can we violate that? That's something that we're not going to do. And therefore, he was able to survive. And that's what Shlomo HaMelech meant when he said, Chochmas noshim bonso beisa. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Yomer Rotza Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Es Yisrael Lefi Chochim Lahem Torah Mitzvos Shenemar Adonai Tzman Tzidko Yabil Torah V'Yavir.